The day the stranger rode into Dust Creek, the wind seemed to slow as if even the desert wanted to watch him arrive. No one knew his name. No one had seen his face before. Yet something about him felt familiar in a way that made people uneasy. He did not look around like most travelers. He did not admire the town or search for opportunity. He kept his eyes lowered as if the ground beneath his boots carried a memory he was afraid to disturb. His horse moved slowly, tired from a long journey, and the man on its back looked even more worn. There was no anger in his face, no pride, no hunger for trouble. Only a quiet heaviness that followed him like a shadow. People stepped aside as he passed. Conversations faded. Doors closed halfway. In a place like Dust Creek, strangers were not welcomed with smiles. They were measured, judged, and often sent away. But this man did not ask for attention. He stopped near the old stable at the edge of town and gently patted his horse before speaking in a low voice that barely carried across the yard. He asked for water for the horse and work if any could be given. That was all. Old Martha, who had lived long enough to read people better than most, studied him for a moment. She saw the way his hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper. She saw the tiredness in his posture, the kind that did not come from travel alone. Without saying much, she handed him a bucket and pointed toward the well. From that moment on, the town began to know him as the quiet cowboy. Days passed, and the quiet cowboy stayed. He worked harder than anyone expected. He repaired broken fences without being asked. He lifted heavy loads without complaint. He fixed roofs before storms arrived and stayed late to help anyone in need. When someone offered him extra pay, he often refused. When someone struggled, he stepped in quietly and helped without waiting for thanks. Yet for all the good he did, there was something distant about him. He never laughed. He never shared stories. And every evening, just before the sun disappeared behind the hills, he would leave town and walk toward the open land. Beyond Dust Creek. At first, no one paid much attention. People have their habits, and in a town full of survivors, no one questioned silence. But a young boy named Caleb noticed. Caleb had the kind of curiosity that could not be quieted. He watched the cowboy leave each evening and return long after dark. One day, unable to hold back any longer, he followed him. The path led far beyond the last house, past dry grass and scattered stones, to a small patch of land that looked no different from the rest of the desert. The cowboy stopped there, looked around as if making sure he was alone, and then did something that puzzled the boy. He knelt down and began to dig. Caleb stayed hidden behind a rock and watched. The man dug slowly at first, then faster, as if driven by something he could not control. The ground was hard, but he did not stop. His hands became dirty, his breathing heavier, yet he kept going. After a while, he paused, staring into the shallow hole as if expecting something to appear. The next evening, Caleb followed him again, and the next, each time, the same thing happened. The cowboy would arrive, kneel down, and dig in the same spot. It did not make sense. There was no treasure, no water, nothing valuable in that dry piece of land. Yet the man returned every single day as if it were the most important task in his life. One evening, Caleb finally stepped out from hiding. His voice was small but steady when he spoke. He asked the cowboy why he kept digging. The man froze for a moment, surprised to see someone there. He looked at the boy, then at the ground, and for a long time he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough, like it had been buried along with whatever he was trying to uncover. He said he was looking for something he lost. That was all he offered. The answer only made Caleb more curious, but he did not push further. Instead, he sat beside the man and watched him dig. The silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was heavy, but it felt honest. Days turned into weeks, and something began to change. The cowboy started speaking a little more. Not much, but enough. He asked Caleb about the town, about the people, about his life. And slowly, the boy began to understand that the man was not just digging into the ground. He was digging into something inside himself. Then came the night. That changed everything. A storm rolled in without warning. The sky turned dark, and the wind began to howl across the land. Rain fell hard, turning dust into mud within minutes. Most people stayed inside, locking their doors and waiting for the storm to pass. But Caleb could not stop thinking about the cowboy. He ran out into the storm, calling for him, searching the place where he always went. When he reached the spot, he saw the man on his knees, still digging despite the rain pouring down around him. His hands moved faster than ever, as if time itself was running out. Then Caleb heard something he had never heard before. The cowboy was crying, not quietly, not holding it back, but fully, painfully, as if years of silence had finally broken. His voice shook as he spoke words that were not meant for anyone to hear. He said he did not mean to do it. He said he wished he could take it back. He said he had been running ever since. Caleb stepped closer and gently asked what had happened. The cowboy stopped digging. His shoulders dropped. And for the first time, he told the truth. Years ago, he had been part of something he could never undo. A robbery. A mistake. A moment that changed everything. In the chaos, a gun had gone off. Someone innocent had died. And from that day forward, he carried that moment with him wherever he went. He said he buried the man in that very spot. He returned years later, hoping to face what he had done. But instead of finding peace, he found himself digging every day, trying to bury the guilt even deeper. Caleb listened carefully. When the man finished, the storm had begun to calm. The rain softened and the wind slowed. In that quiet moment, the boy said something simple that the cowboy had never allowed himself to believe. He said that hiding from the past does not fix it. He said that maybe the only way forward was to do something good with the time that remained. The word stayed with the cowboy Dot the next morning. Something was different. He still worked hard, but there was a new energy in him. He looked people in the eyes. He spoke a little more. And instead of leaving town every evening to dig, he began staying longer, helping more, giving more of himself to the people around. Dot, he built things that lasted. A small school for children. Stronger homes for families. Safer paths through the land. He gave his time, his strength, and everything he had to make life better for others. People began to trust him. Not because they knew his past, but because they saw his actions. Then one day, riders came into town carrying questions and old memories. They were looking for a man who matched his description. The past had finally caught up. The cowboy did not run. He stepped forward and admitted who he was. He was ready to face whatever came next, but something unexpected happened. The people of Dust Creek stood with him. They spoke of the man they knew now. The one who helped them, the one who gave without asking for anything in return. The one who chose to build instead of destroy. And in that moment, it became clear that a single mistake did not define a lifetime of choices. The riders left without taking him. That evening, the cowboy returned to the place where he once dug every day. But this time, he did not bring a shovel. He stood quietly, looking at the ground, and for the first time, he did not feel the need to bury anything. He understood something he had been running from for years. The past cannot be erased. It cannot be hidden forever. But it can be faced, and more importantly, it can be transformed by the choices made afterward. He placed a simple marker on the ground and whispered a quiet apology. Not because it would change what happened, but because it was the first honest step he had taken in a long time. Caleb stood beside him and asked if he was finally done digging. The cowboy smiled gently and said yes, because he realized that he was never meant to bury his past. He was meant to grow beyond it, and sometimes the heaviest burdens we carry are not meant to break us. They are meant to guide us toward becoming better than we ever were before.